next week or something. I'll figure it out. We'll work out the details. But yeah, you should buy it. It's going to move the market. And Elon just doesn't give a shit. He'll just pay the fines.
Kind of like Wall Street. That's what they do anyway.
That is what they do. That's what their analysts get paid to do. It's paid for manipulation, and it's made legal because, well, I'm a financial advisor. Dude, you got paid by the bank to just talk up whatever stock you just bought. Like, shut up. They go
With
on
how much money they're starting to make, with how big these zeros, the amount of zeros on the end of these things, there's no way to ticket or fine people and corporations enough for it to even matter to them. It's not even a slap on the wrist. It's like a slap on their pinky finger, the fines.
Yeah, it really is so meaningless. It doesn't even come close to being painful. It's like cost of doing business doesn't even really adjust. It doesn't justify the egregiousness of it. It really is just they're just paying off the bonuses for the SEC because they're not they have to take turns. That's what I think is going on. Because you look at all of the members of the SEC, and they all rotate between the big banks, and they trade spots. These guys that have worked on Wall
Mostly
Street.
Goldman Sachs. It's almost always Goldman Sachs, if you notice. I bet if you run like 4 out of 5 of the last 5 shares is probably Goldman Sachs. See if I'm right, TD.
It has been consistently Goldman Sachs, but more than anyone, more than any of the positions that scare the shit out of me is like the U.S. Treasury Department. The U.S. Treasury Department always has somebody from Goldman Sachs there.
Yeah, that's yeah. What were you talking about? I'm sorry. Were you talking about the Treasury or were you talking about the SEC?
I was talking about the SEC, but like the SEC always has somebody. If not the direct chair, they have somebody who is one of the seats of the SEC. There's always somebody from Goldman working at the SEC in a very high up position.
Yep. So what you need like almost two chairs, right? 2 co-chairs. One maybe from SEC who knows the inside, but then somebody else who keeps that guy honest and says, show me. Explain to me how what your recommendations are, why it will help the market.
Right, as if that's going to happen.
It makes me wonder if they do that because they got to make sure that they got somebody that knows all of the skeletons in the closets and all the crazy stuff that would happen if they pull the wrong lever and they're in a position of power.
Well, that's why you have somebody inside. That's why you have somebody from the banking industry. But you need somebody to counter. If I understood you correctly.
I feel like it needs to be an elected position. Because we elect sheriffs, but we don't elect the chairman of the SEC, the enforcer of the entire financial system. That's how I think of it. It should be an elected office.
It should be.
We've been letting banks dictate who gets elected to all of these different seats of power. The Treasury, the head of the Treasury, is always selected by the president. So fiscal policy is always dictated by whoever's in power, and that's why you see the banks always doing so well during a Republican presidency, because they always select somebody from Goldman or one of the big 5 banks. They always do. Who's the Treasury Secretary right now, actually?
Yellen.
That is Yellen. Okay, so Yellen is still the Treasury Secretary. She's just straight up incompetent. She's a fucking idiot.
Is anybody aware, I don't remember in my lifetime, but has there ever been a plan ever addressed to address the budget, the national debt? Like we do lots of stimulus, but has there ever been a plan to do any of the pullback from all these stimuluses we've done over the year and paid debt? And that's pretty sad, isn't it? That there's no counter to
that's what's supposed to be happening now. That's what that's trying to do, but like you said, it'd be questionable whether it really goes through or not.
Yeah, but what's unfortunate is it's with the multiplier effect of decades. It's kind of, you know what I mean? You drop the ball when you don't do it after each occurrence. But I think we need to really address having that built in as part of the structure and pay off the national debt with the national tax right off the top of the national income.
Well, that's what happened in 2018. That was them just barely trying to do exactly what you said. And that's why the stock market freaked out in that weird 2018, 2019 period right before COVID. And they backed off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's scary, like you cited earlier, True Demon, how just the cost
It's
of the
also
national
political.
debt
Yeah, like,
interest is very, very high without touching the principal.
Yeah, it's excessive. We can't raise the interest rates. The option doesn't exist anymore because we can't even service our debt as it is right now.
Yeah,
Janet
not
Yellen,
unless
by the way, I was looking at her career history, and it turns out that she's always been at the Fed. She was former Fed chair, and she's always been at the Fed. That's her whole career, is at the Fed. She was the successor to Ben Bernanke.
but the problem is you always question, what their politics are because she went around to the banks and got major fees for speaking. I don't understand that, how you could do that, how you could charge fees to speak.
It's yeah, it's a
I mean,
problem.
I know why it happens. I just don't understand us allowing it. I mean, it's just,
Because there's nobody there to enforce it that's interested in actually enforcing anti-corruption.
Yep.
Nobody is
yeah, no,
interested in
I
fighting the
agree. I'm just saying
corruption.
it's unfathomable to me. It's unfathomable. You see that in broad daylight. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? I'm telling you guys that,
Yeah,
like a
because nobody's
lobby.
angry enough. Nobody's angry enough.
They didn't take any of the actions that they could have taken as regulators during the '08 financial crisis to stop things when they saw things happen. And they had levers they could have pulled to stop things, and they did nothing.
I think it's safe to assume all these guys failed business ethics.
Well, you've always got, corporate interests behind everything, right? Big donors and
Oh, absolutely. Every single
Yeah.
one.
That's why I think something bigger is going on. That's why I think they're attacking. They're attacking inflation and our debt crisis, not because they care about us or the country. Something is going on where they want to turtle up now, and that's why I think we might be going to war very, very soon.
with whom? I agree, but with whom? Russia and China?
They could team up and tag team us. I think that's a possibility.
It'll probably be another Axis and Allies situation, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, because right now, Russia and China, they're tied together at the hip based on their, well, for one, their political ideology, but also economically, they're tied together because if oil fails in Russia, then, or if oil globally starts to go down, then Russia's economy is going to evaporate, and Russia needs to have a new source for its economic engine, and they need to get control of Ukraine because economically, Ukraine gives them access to shipping. It gives them access to natural resources. It's very important to them, and that's the whole reason for this land grab in the first place. They've always wanted it. Ukraine historically was the breadbasket of Russia before it split off and became just Ukraine.
Yeah.
So it's not really all that surprising
Yeah,
that
it's
they've
strategic. It's
gone
very
after that.
strategic to them.
And China, they're dependent on their technological and their cheap goods services and exports in that regard. But in order to fuel that engine, they need oil. They're the biggest oil burning country ever. So Russia and China right now, like they're best friends because Russia needs somewhere to sell its oil to. It's the crux of their economy, and China needs Russian oil in order to keep going. And right now, they're both, the way they see it is they're being bullied by the world and pushed around and left with little option. And you're talking about two very dangerous superpowers that are being put in a position, they're in a no win scenario. So for them, this is a zero sum game at this point, and they're thinking through strategies. I know that they're just sitting in their war room thinking like, how in the hell are we going to get through this, and hang on to whatever we can grab, because
Yep,
China
and right
wants.
now, the emergency policy that China just instituted for energy basically directs them to max out things like oil as an alternative use. So they'll be buying a lot of oil from Russia that they can get their hands on. They'll be limited in what they can because there's not going to be enough big ships and to make trips back and forth to ship it there for them to get as much as they'd like. But they are going to maximize it.
Yeah, I think the heat, if I recall, I read something about the heat, which is causing some sort of problem with oil also, that they're not able to get produce as much oil internally for some reason as they were. So they're having an internal shortage, I guess, whatever oil they pump. So they will need more from the outside world.
I don't know how their refineries are powered, but I know that they're having a lot of electricity generation issues to provide for their people because they're experiencing climate changes like hot weather they haven't seen since they've been keeping records. In some places they've had
That's right.
very like
They
eight
need more
rivers
oil. Too.
dry up totally, and they
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, they're very limited, so they are using oil, but I don't know
That's what it
exactly
was.
what.
I think the oil was for the electricity. They need more oil because of what's happening. Because there is more use of electricity, they need more oil. I think that's what it was, Scrap Queen, than normal. But we have a problem. There's no question about it. Well, I always thought we were heading towards a world war. There is no question in my mind.
I think that that's part of the reason why China is liquidating U.S. Treasury debt. They've been liquidating U.S. Treasuries at a record pace for the last couple of months now. I was actually going to pull this story up.
That's probably because they want to weaken the dollar. They want their own alternative currency. I think that's more because of that.
Well,
Their
that
economy
that is
hurting.
that is
I've
also
got to
true,
run,
but
guys, but I'll speak to you later. Yeah, I've got Sunday roasted my in-laws now that are over for.
oh,
All right,
man, that
Dave.
sounds
Bye.
good. All
Have
right,
a good
enjoy,
week.
Dave. See you next.
All
See you
right.
next time.
Later,
Thanks.
Dave.
Give us a slice.
So with with China liquidating treasuries now, the there's a couple of things that this does. It does weaken the dollar, and it gives China a little bit more strength in their yuan. But the other thing that it does is it protects them from us canceling their debt if they go into conflict, because that's the first thing that we'll do. The first thing that'll happen is
Yeah.
as soon as China declares war on Taiwan, we'll declare war on China, and that's our excuse to just cancel the debt and cancel their bonds.
Freeze it. Yeah, we'd freeze it. I don't know
Yeah.
if we just freeze
Oh,
it. If we go into war, it's not going to be a conventional war for long. So
No, this
it'll
will
be
be
Yeah.
probably the
it's really
first
not going to
major
matter.
it'll probably be the first major cyber war that we experience, and we're really going to see a face-off between between an army of hackers facing off against each other between two major superpowers.
Yeah,
It's going to be interesting.
We won't have
absolutely.
power for a while when the grid goes down. Ugh.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of want to get a house and set up a homestead before that ever happens, because
Yeah,
it'll be
grab a
too
house
I
when the
don't know.
housing market crashes, everyone. Make sure you get a house out in the country somewhere.
yeah.
I don't even know if you're going to want to really live in that environment. To be honest with you,
You have a
it's such a
choice, though.
we're not even equipped. We're not equipped to survive like in the 1800s anymore.
Absolutely. That's why you just got to do your best to get ready now. Don't tell anyone how awesome your house is. Don't say anything about your solar panels or your water. Tell nobody
True.
nothing. Nope, nope. You get it just like everybody else does.
Yeah, well, you hope you go crop on your homestead. That's the hope.
I got deer in my front yard. They're going to be nice and tasty.
Venison. You're so strangely
You gotta
sweet
provide
to
a
me.
place for them to be fruitful and multiply if you're going to go that route.
I love deer jerky.
I honestly miss having deer jerky. I used to get
I
that
mean,
all
to
the
sound
time from my buddy.
pessimistic, but yeah,
Ugh.
if this happens, I mean, we're going to wind up in a nuclear war anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least at best, one nuke's going to go off somewhere, kind of like Pearl Harbor style.
can't we all just get along? Damn it.
No. Why would you even say that? No. Just like our ancestors a
Crazy,
million
isn't
years
it?
ago, we are going to get the biggest rock and hit the other stupid monkey over the head with it, just like they did. It's all
Yeah,
about
pretty
having the
much.
biggest rock.
We've
Biggest
modernized
rock and the biggest stones.
Yep.
Always used to tell people at work the rules of life have been the same ever since the first man picked up a stone and beat the other man's ass to death with it.
And it's basically the way of humanity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now we just got really complex rocks in the form of sanctions and nuclear weapons.
Did you see where J.P. Morgan is getting at Russia's super yacht?
They're doing what?
Yeah, one of those oligarchs' yachts was financed through some company, and J.P. Morgan ended up getting it out of this auction deal where they're selling it off to somebody to
I
to
saw
keep a
that.
party place.
Yes.
I heard they
Oh
did
yeah.
auction it, but I didn't know J.P. Morgan got it. That's interesting.
I saw that. That's funny. It was
What,
hilarious.
the
I was like, the
CEO?
first thing that happens when Russia starts to lose control of its finances is the oligarchs you lose their yachts. That's the first loss that they had to suffer. It's fucking silly.
That's for Putin,
Great.
who managed to bring his back to port before he went to war.
The billionaires were upset with Putin and trying to bail, though. I do know that a lot of them were already trying before Putin did something stupid. They had already been like liquidating assets and moving them over to other countries and stuff.
Yeah. And then
Had
he
been
froze
reading
them.
about
He
it
froze their bank accounts
before.
too.
Yeah, he really screwed over the billionaires. So the billionaires aren't necessarily even supporting the country or Putin or anything. As evil as they may be in their own right, they're I guess at least not Putin evil, if that makes sense.
I don't know if Putin's evil, stupid, or crazy. It's really
Heroes,
hard to
right?
choose. He might be just a combination of the three.
He's a what is it? They say he's a master tactician, but a lousy strategist is what he is.
You got
The
that right.
billionaires are smart enough and sane enough to realize that they need a world to rule over. If you nuke the whole world, there's no luxury and people to rule over.
That is
I wish
entirely
I
true.
would have went long on German electricity. That's the one thing I've learned from all this.
You know what? I actually can't agree with Putin being a brilliant tactician either, because he sent an entire army into Ukraine, telling them that it was a training exercise, and some of them were being told that they would be welcomed as heroes, and they immediately got shot at and had their asses whooped by
Yeah, that was
farmers who stole their
crazy.
tanks with tractors. So no, I'm gonna have to say that Putin is not a
Wait,
brilliant
wait, wait, wait,
tactician.
wait,
He's
wait.
straight up stupid.
He has poor people, poor aides around him, or they all tell him what he lives in. That's the problem with being an autocrat, is that basically they tell him what he wants to hear. He was
Yeah.
going on what he thought. So that we got to reserve that, but I guess he's stupid for even not he's not aware. He's not aware that people are yesing him. I guess there is a flaw in the personality when you want to be an autocrat, because sooner or later that's all you want to hear is what you want to hear. The result you want is what you want people to say. Yeah, you can do it. It can happen. I'm sure. I think people objected. Well, I think when he first mentioned that, I think some of his aides said, "No, don't do it." But I guess that is him, if that's the case. But he went to his generals, and they probably said, "Yeah, we can do it. Here's our plan." They made it sound good on paper. But he was also unaware that his army, and I don't know why he got caught by surprise, but he wasn't aware that his army wasn't being equipped and trained. That all the corruption that he encouraged wound up occurring there. So they went to a war with a subpar army. He was probably caught unaware that they were that bad.
Probably.
Haven't people speculated that he's sick and dying and maybe his mind is going, though, too?
Oh, what? Like all of our entire Congress? Wow, what a surprise.
That's fair. That's fair.
On a macro level, kind of looking at the conversations I've had with my buddy and his HF, and looking at the Catholic Church, and looking at what Powell said, it looks like we're going to have a really, really nasty September. Probably post OPEX and OWN is what it looks like.
Post OPEC and OWN say what?
So post monthly options expiration, we're probably going to have a really, really nasty September into October and November.
Dark winter coming.
Gotcha.
That's what it looks like. I mean, so if you look back at the SPY and you're looking at volume and you're looking at the COVID crash, you don't really see like tons of selling and capitulation. What you see is almost a bail-in, where they create these devices where these banks can get leverage times 1,000, and then we all see a really good price. So you have all this money flowing in, but I've yet to see enough outflows to suggest to me that we'll find a bottom anytime soon. Just looking at volume-wise and volume shelves, and even talking to the guys I know that are executives in the company, and they got a couple hedge funds managing their retirement accounts. Like, they literally waived all the fees. for them at all. Normally, those management fees are like 2 to 5% with them. Plus, they'll take like a quarter of your gains. So they're making I'd say probably a quarter for every buck that you make, and then they get a fee on top of that. So you're after expenses and everything, you're maybe getting half of what you get if you were retail trading it and having that same success. But kind of looking at them, they're greedy bastards. They've never waived fees.
Yeah.
Like he made mention. He asked me about it, and he's like, "Well, what do you think?" And I sort of had the same conversation with him, and I was like, "Just look at the numbers, Brent." I was like, "They look bad. Like, you can keep your money with them if you want." I know what I would do. I wouldn't keep my money with them.
That's actually a good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Soldier. I had almost forgotten about that.
Okay.
This actually reminded me of the midterm election year seasonality chart that pulled up. So this
Yep.
is this is the seasonality chart that this wasn't something that I found actually. A YouTuber on a channel called Money Time Machine. Kid's really he's not a kid, but he's a really smart dude that he trades on seasonality quite a bit, and he threw this chart up here, and this was fantastic. It actually called the mid August rally almost perfectly, like this big second year new Democratic president. The rally at the end of July through early August called the rally perfectly, and then at towards the end of August is when there's a big sell off going into September, and then a second drop all the way through to the end of September. And I feel like this is matching up pretty well with our chart situation right now. And these are all of the chart conditions which are true for us this year. We have our first term, midterm elections. We have our Democratic president midterms, and the second year of our Democratic president. So now we've got seasonality for all of these situations, and every single one of them says red through the end of August until the end of September. And then we might get a rally at some point early into October before a big drop again going towards the end of October, and then we go into the holiday rally. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this plays out against our current chart, because this looks like a picture perfect setup for what we're experiencing right now in the S&P, and the SPX is looking rough, man. Like it looks rough. I think the Nasdaq is actually going to be even worse. The candle on the Nasdaq was brutal. It's 4% drop in a day. It's crazy. But I'm thinking that Nasdaq is going to see drop all the way back down to um, all the way back down to the lows at maybe 11,000 or so. It's interesting. The cipher pattern actually printed here. I am only just looking at this for the first time. I haven't seen this cipher pattern before, but I have a feeling that that Nasdaq still has to drop all the way back down to this area first.